I noticed the sign first. It was a Tuesday in March, just after 6 in the evening, and I was coming home from a 12-hour shift. I had my work bag on my shoulder and my keys already in my hand because I always get them out in the parking lot. Habit from years of coming home tired. I turned onto my street and I saw the sign in my front yard, and for a full 3 seconds, my brain did not process what it was seeing. A for sale sign, red and white, in my yard. There was a lockbox on my front door handle, a real estate lockbox, the kind with the combination dial. I stood on the sidewalk and I looked at it, and I looked at the sign, and I did not move. My neighbor Frances was sitting on her porch across the street. She looked at me and then she looked away, and that small, deliberate gesture told me she knew something and had decided it wasn't her place to say it. I looked at the sign again. The agent's name on it was Frank Caldera. Frank Caldera had been my parents' friend for 22 years. He had come to my high school graduation. My name is Megan. I am 36 years old, and I am a licensed physical therapist at a regional medical center, which means I spend my days helping people rebuild what they thought they had lost. I bought my house when I was 30. It is a 3-bedroom Craftsman on a quiet street, and I chose it with the kind of care that people use when they know they are not going to do something like this again for a very long time. My parents had helped with the down payment, $22,000, given 6 years ago, documented in a formal gift letter that my father had signed in front of a notary, stating clearly that the funds were a gift, that no repayment was expected, and that no ownership interest was being retained. I had kept that letter in a folder in my filing cabinet. I had paid every mortgage payment myself in the 6 years since. I had thought that was enough to make it mine. My parents are people who believe that helping someone financially gives them a permanent and renewable stake in that person's decisions. I had understood this about them for most of my adult life and had managed it with a combination of gratitude and distance. We were close enough for Sunday phone calls and holidays. We were not close enough for me to have given them a key to my house. I did not know, standing on that sidewalk, how they had gotten in to install the lockbox. I would find out later that Frank had provided a contractor's key for the showing prep. I would find out a lot of things later. I called my father from my car, still parked in front of my own house, because I could not make myself go inside yet. He answered on the second ring. His voice was easy, unhurried. He said they had been meaning to tell me. He said the neighborhood had been changing, and he said this with the authority of someone who drove through it twice a year, and that the market was strong right now and that I should take the equity and move somewhere closer to them. He said he and my mother had found a good buyer, a family. He said I should be grateful. I asked him how he had listed my property without my authorization. There was a pause. Then he mentioned the power of attorney. I had signed a power of attorney 7 years ago when I was preparing for a surgery that carried a small but real risk of complications. It was a medical POA, drafted to give my mother authority to make medical decisions if I was incapacitated and unable to make them myself. I had signed it in a hospital administrator's office, reviewed it quickly, and then filed it away when the surgery went smoothly and I had no further reason to think about it. I had never revoked it. I had not thought there was anything to revoke. My father said they had found it in the paperwork I had left at their house after my grandmother's funeral 3 years ago. He said their attorney had looked at it. He said it gave them authority to act on my behalf. He said it the way someone says something they have rehearsed. I contacted a real estate attorney that night. Her name was Judith, and she had been recommended to me by a colleague who described her as someone who read documents the way other people read faces, looking for what they were actually saying versus what they appeared to say. I told Judith everything. She asked me to scan and send the POA document before we spoke again. I found it in my own filing cabinet at 11 o'clock that night, pulled it out, and read it carefully for the first time since I had signed it. The scope language was specific. The document granted authority for medical and healthcare decisions in the event of my incapacitation and unable to make them myself. It referenced hospital treatment, surgical consent, end-of-life decisions. It contained no language, not a phrase, not a clause, that addressed real property transactions, not a reference to financial authority of any kind beyond immediate medical expenses. I sent it to Judith. She called me at 7 the next morning. She said the document was clearly and exclusively a medical POA, that its use to authorize a real estate transaction was a material scope violation, and that she was going to send a formal letter to the title company that same day, flagging the dispute. She told me the transaction could not legally close without title insurance, and that no title company would issue insurance on a transaction with a disputed authorization. The closing was scheduled for 19 days away. Judith said that was our window and that we should move quickly. The title company paused the transaction within 48 hours of receiving Judith's letter. I know this because Frank called me. He called from his personal cell, not his office line, which told me something about how official he wanted the conversation to be. He said he understood I had some concerns, but that the buyer was a young family who had already given notice at their rental and that it would be a real hardship if this fell through. He said my parents had always spoken so highly of me. He said he hoped we could find a resolution. I told him I would be in touch through my attorney. My brother called the following evening. He is 2 years older than me and has always occupied the role of family mediator, which in practice means he asks the person with the legitimate grievance to absorb it quietly so that everyone else can remain comfortable. He said our parents meant well. He said they were worried about me, that they thought I was isolated, that the whole thing came from a place of love. He said it was just a house. I sat with that for a long time. The 6 years of mortgage payments, the weekend I had spent replacing the bathroom tile by myself because I wanted to learn how, the garden in the backyard that had taken me 2 full seasons to get right, the specific quality of light in the kitchen on a Sunday morning that I had never described to anyone because it felt too private. My brother said it was just a house. I had never once thought of it that way. I found the original gift letter the next morning while I was organizing my file folder. My father's signature, notarized, stating in plain language that the $22,000 was a gift, that no repayment was expected, and that no ownership interest was being retained by the donor. He had been careful and thorough when he signed it, because at the time it had benefited him to be. The gift letter was required by my mortgage lender to confirm the funds were not a disguised loan. He had signed away his claim in writing 6 years ago. He had kept a copy at the time because his accountant had asked for one. So had I. Judith submitted the gift letter alongside the POA scope analysis to the title company's legal review team. The review took 11 days. On the 12th day, the title company issued its determination. The power of attorney did not grant authority for real property transactions, the listing had been executed without valid authorization, and the company would not issue title insurance on the transaction. Without title insurance, the buyer's financing lender withdrew their commitment. The deal collapsed the following afternoon. Judith filed to have the POA formally revoked and submitted a removal demand to the listing agent. The listing came down within 72 hours. I changed the locks that weekend. My parents did not speak to me for 4 months. I used the time to meet with an estate planning attorney, review every document with my name on it, and make sure nothing was ambiguous. I updated my medical POA with a new document that named a friend from work instead. I did not tell my parents I had done this. The title company meeting was the last time I was in the same room as my parents and their attorney. It was held in a small conference room with fluorescent lighting and a table that was slightly too large for the number of people in it. My parents sat across from me. My father looked at the table for most of it. My mother looked at me with an expression I had seen before, the one that means she believes she has been wronged but has not yet found the right framing to explain how. I did not speak to them directly. Judith handled everything. When the title company representative read the determination aloud, my parents' attorney said something quietly to my father, and my father nodded once. That nod told me more than 4 months of silence had. I learned from Frances, my neighbor, the one who had looked away from her porch that first evening, that Frank Caldera lost his license to operate in the county the following year. An unrelated matter, she said, though she smiled slightly when she said unrelated. I did not ask for details. I refinanced my home 6 months after the listing came down. The process required a full title search, which came back clean. The loan officer noted that the deed history was straightforward. I told her it had taken some work to make it that way. The garden in the backyard is in its third expansion now. I added a row of lavender along the south fence last spring. It is doing exactly what I hoped it would. The house was always mine. It just took a title company to make everyone else admit it. If someone has ever tried to make a decision about your life using access you gave them for a completely different reason, I'd like to hear how you handled it. And if this story stayed with you, subscribe. There are more ahead.